you.
First of all, thank you so much, Ms. Praveena, for inviting me to this platform, School Reformer. This is my first day here as a speaker, and I'm looking forward to more such occasions where I get a chance to present my views. So our topic, as Ms. Praveena already stated, and it's there in front of all of us, is Let's Evolve, looking back and looking ahead. So looking back, if I say, let's look back, and just a little introduction for myself. I'm Miss Kavita Govil. I was not an educator, if you ask me, a decade ago, but for the past 1 decade, I have been associated with schools. I am into the field of teaching, plus different responsibilities that comes along with it. And this topic is so very close to my heart. You will get to know why, I'm sure, as adults, because I've been told that mostly adults are here who are listening to this topic here. You will very well know, because I get a lot of queries from parents, from fellow colleagues, sometimes from, even from students many a times, asking such questions which will evolve as we go ahead with our journey for today. So let's look ahead. That's the mantra. Looking back is important. We all know that. So here we begin. So a few disclaimers. I'll go on. I don't have too many slides here because I see this as a point of speaking. Slides for me are becoming a little redundant these days. So it's not many slides. So let's begin with a few disclaimers. So my focus here is on different curriculums or curricula. And here, just for the sake of a better understanding and clarity, I've kept CBSE, ICSE, IGCSE, and IB in a little focus, and each curriculum I feel is designed to suit specific student requirements. So that's what the relevance of each curriculum is. Next, this disclaimer is that even if my focus may seem to be more on IB, because that's what my entire experience has been, and very recently I switched on to CBSE as well. So it has been a decade of experience in IBs, but it is in no way a promotional platform for any specific curriculum. I fondly, dearly, earnestly feel that each curriculum, is designed for a specific requirement. Hence, I will try to present my understanding in different spheres. So that's also a part of the disclaimer. It is solely an individual's preference, as I mentioned earlier, just a minute back as well, that it's an individual's preference to select a specific curriculum. Let's Evolve may or may not help to break a few myths associated with IB as I share my experiences for the same. So, one myth I can tell you, that's ringing right now in my heart, right now when I am talking here is, people consider IB as a visa. I will not even say a passport, but a visa to an overseas education. So that's what many a times the queries come in from the parents. But that also is a myth. Why do I say? It was just an example, though we will, in the next slide, you will see we'll talk about different aspects. Why do I say as a myth is, I don't feel that CBSE or an ICSE cannot be a visa for an overseas education, and only IB or an IGCSE is. So that's why I say it's a myth. So we will try our best. It's a very limited time that has been given. It's just 20 minutes, but I will try my best. And it is one disclaimer which is not written here is, it's more of a tuning in kind of a session. So as we evolve, because this says, the title says, let's evolve. So in my further sessions, maybe, I would love to have weekly sessions also, but in my further sessions, let's talk on this topic more in an advanced way, so that all these dilemma that's there in our head, in a parent's head, in a student's head, in sometimes an educator's head as well, that can be resolved to a certain extent. So here we go to my next slide. Now, this slide, I feel honestly, I don't know how many of you would agree with me here. I mean, I feel it's a very generic kind of slide. But then I question, anyone can question is, why do we still have so many questions around it? And believe me, it's like almost on a daily basis. When a kid is switching from, let's say, an IB or an IGCSE in an IGCSE curriculum, again, giving you a little background sometimes. We will soon, very soon, because this is my last slide, honestly. So many a times the question is, even for a kid switching from an 8th to a 9th, what can be the best subject choice if, let's say, it's an IB curriculum that the student is in, if the child is in. So that's, and that is a very big thought in the head of the parent of the child, and there are so many combinations available. So that's there. So if there are questions, so I somehow, then we can also agree with the fact that this is not so generic. We are still discussing these things. There are still seminars being held. There are still, counselors working on the idea of what can be, what can suit a child, what can be better. Again, this is not to say that this is better versus that is better. Everything is better. What suits the child, what suits the student here. But let's start. So all the points, if you see on my left side, the main broadly, the points stated are technical, focus, philosophy / academic approach, extracurricular, focus subjects, future scope. So these are not just, 1, 2, 3, 6 points in front of us. These are kind of 6 sessions in front of us. So though, as I told you already in my disclaimer, it's kind of a tuning in. So today we'll try to focus on entirety as a whole, which can be a little generic. I'll try my best when we are on the question and answer round to resolve a few queries if there are. So let's start with the technical aspect first. And just for the sake of understanding, what I've done is, though there can be more curriculum which is national based here. So just for the sake of ease and understanding, I kept it as CBSE / ICSE and IGCSE / IB, just for the sake of clarity, ease, understanding. Now, when we see a CBSE or an IGCSE, I mean, though I stated it in a slide in such a way that this looks like a this versus this, right? So in terms of the technicality involved, when we say a CBSE or an ICSE curriculum versus an IGCSE or an IB curriculum, the difference is in the terms of the technical approach, first of all. So very clearly mentioned here that CBSE and ICSE, they're dealing with all subjects till grade 10, till the time the student is in grade 10. And then there are specific streams chosen, though I know NAP is also a focus area, but it will certainly take maybe a couple of more years to roll in to the schools, etc. But then as of now, I'm talking only the current scenario right now. There are specific streams which are chosen, and those are well aware of: the medical, the non-medical, the commerce stream, the humanities side to it. So those specific streams are for 11th and 12th. Now, all the subjects here, if you see the versus part, the IGCSE or IB part, the technical aspect just says that all subjects are catered to till grade 8. And then the subject specific choices, which is not stream based actually, that begins from, starting from the grade 9 and which follows till grade 12. So that's the first part. The second part now, so that was a little difference one can see. Now the second point, which is the focus. Again, I get to hear from different parents sometimes when they are discussing ideas that it is, CBSE is more NCRT based versus ICSE, which is still more in depth or a deeper focus on maybe similar concepts, versus again IGCSE, which is, or an IB, which is more research based. Now one can see, I'm saying from my personal experience, but I feel honestly, this is what I've stated here as a pointer here, that the focus is multidisciplinary learning there when we talk about CBSE or ICSE. And here broadly I've written inquiry based learning, which is more research based. Now, does that mean that CBSE or ICSE is not inquiry based or not research based, and IGCSE or IB is not multidisciplinary learning? I don't think so. It is. But why still I've stated it broadly here is because that's a very explicit, a broader classification to an IGCSE IB, which is, one, if a student or a parent is into that curriculum, one will see that it is there, explicitly there, visibly there. So hence I've mentioned that. But yes, I mean, you can see areas where there is inquiry-based learning, there is research-based learning in CBSE and ICSE, likewise in IGCSE and IB, a multidisciplinary approach to learning is followed. Now, moving on to my next point is philosophy and the academic approach. Now, honestly, this is an honest interpretation of what I've written here. This is not in a rule book per se. As I stated, this is my experience of all these years being into as an educator. So effective learning and holistic development of a learner is what any kind of a curriculum or any curriculum's approach will be. So I hope all of you will agree with this point here. So moving on quickly, this third point was very quick. Now moving on to the next point, extracurricular. See, since I would say here, I would talk about first an IB or an IGCSE part to it. So there are the approach, since it's inquiry, the approach since it's research based. Hence, because of the approach followed there, you will see activity based orientation in everything, actually in everything. Even for those academic disciplines and subjects, you will see that approach coming in. So when we talk about extracurricular, we talk about those strings that are attached. So a student participating in, let's say, an MUN or a round square or any other kind of per se things, debates, declamations, recitations, etc. So those extracurricular, however, I mean, one can easily say that CBSE or ICSE is also not far behind. As I said, I recently shifted on to a CBSE school. So there also, I mean, I could see there is opportunities galore. So there is no dearth of opportunities. So one can, again, not say that there is a huge some distinction. I would rather point it as that all are pertaining to effective reading, writing, speaking, and presentation. Now, that was the point here for extracurricular. I know I'm moving very quickly from one point to the other, but I wanted to give a first an overall approach before we start to go on to the technicalities, start to go on wherever there are differences here. I would like to, again, now, if there is time which is there, Ms. Praveena, you can stop me if, let's say, I go beyond the time. So I would like to then focus on the areas where the differences have been pointed out here in my slide. So my next thing in the slide is which talks about focus subjects. So here, again, one will see a difference which is there mentioned, because here it talks about in CBSE and ICSE, it talks about different streams. And I already stated what all streams does it talk about. And again, it depends on the students or the individual choice to which stream to opt for. In IGCSE in the other way, in IB in the other way, if the student is going for the diploma, because IB is a natural progression to a diploma program. So there are subject choices, which I already mentioned, which begins with grade 9 onwards. So the student very carefully opts for those subjects in grade 9 and follows the same in grade 10. Again, can opt for different subject choices in grade 11, which is followed in grade 12 till grade 12. So one can say there is no specific stream. It's not required. It's not a mandate that if a student has opted for a, let's say, a physics, the student should opt for a chemistry and or a bio as well attached to that. The student can very easily opt for a physics and then can be an account subject there. And, the combinations are such, but yes, the approach is thought of. It's not that you just blindly opt for subjects and you don't know where it leads to. So where it's leading to is well thought of, and there are counselors in place where the meetings are held and all these on a platform. Wherever there is a confusion, the help is sought, and hence the subject choices are done. So no specific stream as such, one can say. And now the future scope, again, I feel sky is the limit these days. I never want to keep it. I once saw there was a PDF document which was circulated wherein what these streams of CBSE will further lead to, what is the careers you can opt for. And I very well remember clearly, I could have pasted that, but that was somebody else's work there. So that was hundreds of streams coming out from CBSE and ICSE as a curriculum. So I feel it's not limited. Again, a myth is, that's just a myth, that if it's an IB, it may lead to, the options are galore. That's again a myth which has to be broken. It's so, and since CBSE is into streams, so only like 4 or 5 or 10 streams are opened. I don't think so. That's a reality in today's scenario and today's world. So I hope I was able to give you a holistic and a very generic kind of an approach for this slide here. Yeah. So now moving on to specifics, where we see a little difference noted here, so that this helps us in a better understanding. And then thereafter, because I see I have a few minutes left, and we can focus on, otherwise I thought we can take this into different sessions where we talk about the differences, the commonalities of each point, and then out of your questions which are there, further sessions can also be formed. However, since we have 6 minutes at our disposal, so I would like to here take up the idea, first of all, is focus subjects. And here I would like to talk about my experience in International Baccalaureate, that is IB, of all subject choices which have been presented to the students and which has helped them in a big way. There are chances that a subject choice is not done carefully, and it can be done then anywhere in streams as well when we talk about CBSE. So a careful subject choice is very important. Now the big question is, a child of 13-year-old, because in grade 8, obviously the child is 13-year-old. Sometimes we say that even a 15-year-old cannot decide which stream to opt for. So how can a 13-year-old opt? And we face different, parents come to us, we sit with the parents, we discuss this time and again. Sometimes there are many meetings that are required. And even for the expert students who are academically brilliant, honestly, I can tell you there is a lot of confusion there more. Rather than having confusion on the other side of it, there is a confusion more there. So what subject choice, because it's not easy, first of all. So subject choices are to be very carefully done and with a focus, as I mentioned earlier as well, looking at what the end result can be. Now, again, no one knows. One cannot say, today I want to become an architect, maybe tomorrow, not tomorrow. And when I say tomorrow, I mean it can be 6 months to a year to 2 years. I may change as a student. My interest may change. My passion may change. That's okay. But why these subject choices then help us? Because even if my passion or interest is changing, the subject choices are done in this way that it's not just open to one, approach at the end of it. It opens you to 10 different approaches in what you're leading to. So even if, let's say, your passion of that specific interest that is there, when you opted for those subjects which could have easily helped you, goes out of your head and that's no longer your passion, there are other 7 to 8 options which you still can look forward to. So that helps. Now, coming to another area. So coming to another area for the focus here, because I think while covering the focus subjects, I in some way covered the technical aspect as well. Though, as I said, these points are so that it will take an entire session or more to finally look at. We should be presenting those, what all subject choices are there, and what all detailing in those subjects. English is not just one level. Sometimes in CBSE we have English in one level. Even in IB till MYP we have English at one level only. But when it comes to a DP, which is a diploma program, which is grade 11th and 12th in a layman's term here, so the level of English also is in varies. It can be literature, it can be in language and literature, it can be literature and performance. So why I'm saying all this is because every point here needs a different session. So having said that, because of the paucity of time, so I'll discuss on the focus for the last 2 minutes that we have. So the focus, as I said, again, coming to my experience of the overall experience, much of experience here for IB, the inquiry-based learning or the research-based approach which is followed, and I've seen that being followed. I was associated more with a middle school and a secondary school per se, so I can talk more about that. But having my kids in primary school at that time when I started, so I saw that was not just middle school or a secondary school that is there as a research base, it was even there in a primary school. So that really helps. That's actually a little distinction which I see when I see that research, when a child is given just those basic questions, or the child would have questions. It can be either ways. It's not that the questions are forced on the child and the child is supposed to find answers to that. The child can make a list of those 3 or 4 questions on a given concept, or let's say a given topic, and then can adequately do the research on that and then come up to certain interpretations, certain conclusions, which can be right or wrong. No, that's no way one should take it as a right or a wrong, because otherwise, if you're trying to say it has to be right, then you're asking for Mr. Google to step in every time, which is not correct, right? So that's one of the things which is interesting to note in an inquiry based learning or a research based learning here. However, having said that, my recent association with CBSE, I see that's evolving. Now, when I say it's evolving, it's not limited to just an NCRT book. And the biggest, explicit evidence of that is the recent entrance examination. I'm sure most of you would have heard about it, which is started even after a grade 12 board exam in CBSE. So that actually calls for volumes in the fact that an evolved kind of an approach, not just limiting to, let's say, a book or a structure. It's a wonderful structure which is followed in CBSE. I really appreciate the structure which is there, versus, there are no books which are there, let's say, in IB. I mean, there are no set books that we hand a book to a child and we say this is to be done. But again, that strikes me to another very important point here of the requirement. What is required for your child? That is important. If you feel, see, obviously, what again, monetary is on one hand one idea, one aspect which is to be considered while choosing a curriculum for your ward. At the same time, you should also look at what exactly is the approach you want to follow for your child, and what the one can say, what the prowess of the child is, what the genius of the child is, what is the passion of the child, so that helps while selecting the curriculum for your child. I know I've taken 1 minute extra for this session. I hope that's okay with Miss Praveena.
Yes, Miss Kavita, no worries at all. We have some questions lined up. Actually, you have covered most of the points here. You have already given the answers. Still, I would like to read them out to you.
Sure.
The first question is, please tell us about your education career background.
Okay. All right. So I did my BA in English honors. Thereafter, I did my MA in English literature, and as well as my BEd there. So that is about my education qualification. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So you spoke about the shift, right, from IB to CBSE. The audience want to know, how did the shift from IB to CBSE feel?
Okay. Shift from either or only IB to CBSE?
From IB to CBSE is the question.
Okay. All right. So that's a very easy question for the parent who asked me that. I have two kids, one in grade 10 who passed from an IB school, grade 10, and one who passed grade 8 from an IB school, and I shifted them in grade 11 to a CBSE school, and the other one in grade 9 to a CBSE school. So again, as I say, it depends on your own specific requirement as an individual, right? So why I shift, if the parent asks me this question, the shift is, first of all, the shift is not uncommon. So again, rule that myth out of your head that this is an uncommon shift, because many people ask me this question, why? I mean, why are you doing this shift? IB looks like a fad. I mean, IB is becoming more of a fashion these days. It's true. I'm not saying that, but considering my own experience here, my daughter wanted to go for the competitive exams. She wanted to sit, first of all. It depends on the child, I would rather say. So for a parent, it is not difficult at all, because the parent sees what the child wants. And obviously these days, children have their own mindset. They are informed students these days. They are no longer our days. I mean, gone are the days, I would say, that our parents used to decide for us. I mean, my parents decided for me actually what I would do in my, let's say, grade 11 and 12. I was a medical student in grade 11 and 12, if I am to tell Praveena here, and I hope everyone is listening. And thereafter, when I had to do something of my choice, then I did my education in English honors and English literature, right? So I don't think so. The shift is uncommon. It's thought of as uncommon, but it is not. Secondly, I'm just summing it up right now. It is more of the requirement of the child. So one has to look at the child, what the child needs, and the shift is perfectly doable. I think it's easy.
So my question, this question is from my side. Do you think that CBSE or any state board is more helpful for Indian competitive exams than IB?
See, this question requires so much of time to answer, because why, this question is, in IB curriculum, what happens, I will tell you, because I have to explain the IB curriculum to you. So what I'll do is, I'll not explain the entire IB curriculum here. I'll just explain the component of English here, because I was teaching English, both MYP and secondary school, which is till DP, from 9, 10th, 11th, 12th. I was teaching all grades. Now in CBSE, because I recently moved to CBSE, I'm just giving an example here. So, but that will answer, Ms. Praveena, your question in a big way. I know that. So in English only, and in a very layman's way, layman style, I'm trying to say what I'm trying to say right now is, in CBSE, I saw 2 books, for example, for English, and obviously grammar, which is integrated or in isolated way to a certain extent being taught. So if there are 2 literature books there, supplementary reading plus 1 more book, what happens here in IB for English only is, and I'm talking DP, which is the diploma program here, because I should be talking that kind of a shift rather than talking about primary years or early years or middle school years starting. So English is divided into 4 or sometimes 5 also. I'm discounting 1 here. So English is only into these 4. So imagine, so there is, let's say, a paper 1, which is a full subject. There is a paper 2, which is again a full subject. There is something called as higher level essay, if the student opts for an HL subject. There is an extended essay, if the student opts for extended essay for that subject. There are individual orals for the same subject, which is also a big component. So if you see here, 2 simple books versus these 5 challenging tasks, I'm saying all 5 are not true. It is as per the student's choice, but 3 tasks out of these 5 are true. And these 3 tasks are like 3 subjects in any other curriculum. Now, answering straight away your question is, then it becomes very challenging for a student if the student is oriented to sit for a competitive paper. Where is the time? So hence to say, because all these subjects are important, whereas here what happens in a CBSE curriculum is, if the child is oriented, for example, my daughter chose non-medical because she is wanting to sit for the competitive for the same. So here the orientation is more for a physics, chemistry, math, and it's done. I mean, I'm not trying to say that English or let's say a 5th subject is not there. It is, but it's the focus is more on these 3 subjects. So because of the paucity of time consideration, there is no time left, because there is so much to do in IB in terms of these specific subject choices that they make. So, and all these subjects, here I told about English only, just mentioned English. Just imagine all these subjects.
For the child.
Yeah.
It saves time for the child is what you're trying to say.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But again, it is up to the child. If the child wants to do that, it's not that I'm not saying it is not possible, but what is easy is one has to think.
Right. So the third question goes like this. From teacher's point of view, how to select between IB and CBSE curriculum?
IB and?
CBSE curriculum.
From teacher's point of view?
Yes, please.
See, from teacher's point of view, I would not want to comment from a teacher's point. I mean, you're asking me as what
as a teacher. Yes.
I feel better. That's what you're asking.
Right.
See, I feel all curriculums are equally better and good and very good, in fact, because that's what, my approach to teaching and learning will be. My approach will not be limited to just 2 books of what is given to me and what is to be taught. It is a language. For example, I'm teaching English there. So it's a language. And I am doing the same thing as I was doing in, let's say, an IB school for English as a subject. So I am not limiting myself because of the limit of the 2 books there and a grammar there. I'm exploring all possible avenues for the child. So that depends on the teacher, I would say, rather than depending on the curriculum here. I cannot comment much on those specific sciences or the humanities or other subjects for accounting, etc., because my expertise is not there. However, I don't think so that anyone will limit himself or herself if there is an expertise for a subject, not just because this is given to us and this is to be done. No, I will never do that. So I'm open to both curriculums in an equal way.
Okay. So the other question is about technology, Ms. Kavita. How can technology help transform teaching and learning in IB?
See, we are into technology all the time. COVID,
Right.
COVID has taught us everything. I was never even aware of Zoom, right? I know I'm talking about minor things, but these days technology is the new norm, is the mantra. One note, I'm sure those educators who are listening to me, one note is not something uncommon I'm talking about here. One note is like Padlets, OneNote, I mean, all these things, Kahoot quizzes, in terms of, working in the system for the specific subject domains, I'm saying those have become so common. So technology is a part and parcel. If you try to get away from technology, I'm sorry to say that you have to unlearn and learn again. So technology is embedded into learning.
Right. This is, I think, to the school management, but anyways, I'll read out the question to you. For a school management point of view, is there any difference between running an IB and CBSE school?
Yes, lot of difference, lots and lots of difference. There is, and see, CBSE, since it's too recent for me, I mean, I'm sorry if I'm not able to comment much on it, but out of my talking with different colleagues who've been in CBSE, etc., of what little I've seen there, why not every school is IB? First is the monetary implications, which are huge. So, when authorizations happen, and fortunately, I've seen two authorizations in IB school, it happens after every 5 years. So, every nook and cranny is looked at. It's not just superficially the paperwork, etc. So, everything is looked at. So, lots and lots and lots is required. So, obviously, these lots require, they hit the monetary things from everywhere. So that's one big aspect to it, if I'm able to answer your question of what you asked. So yes, there is a big difference here. It's not, which is not small. However, having said that, CBSE is much evolving with NEP. I'm in so much in favor of NEP. I don't know why it is taking so much of time to actually roll into the system and to begin. I mean, I was hearing about it 3 years ago, I think. I don't know and how many, I mean, it was when the talk started or what, but I clearly remember, I when reading newspapers, that the NEP system was to be regulated, but I don't know why it is still not. So once NEP comes, I feel there'll be a lot more which will be, the all the gaps which are there when we say CBSE or an IB. I think many gaps will be bridged, that will be filled.
Yeah, Ms. Kavita, because of the time constraint, I would like to skip this because I feel that you have already answered this. I'll just read out the question to you and move on to the next question.
Sure.
What is unique about IB and what do you think as its greatest strength? So you have already explained, right?
Yeah.
So I'll move to the next question. What drives and motivates you most in your work?
Students, all the time, all the time, all the time. It's only the students. So nothing else motivates, nothing else drives me, but only the students motivate and they drive me. I feel happiest in the company of my students.
Okay. Is there any data on how performance of IB schools in India compare with IB schools outside India?
Say data, obviously, but that lies to the management. When these authorization visits happen, obviously there are policies restated wherever the amendments are to be done. Each and every single amendment gets done out of it, and there are whatever recommendations come in. So the schools start to work on recommendations. So they are matching with the standards of IB globally. So, whenever the authorization happens, so any IB school has to globally match with the requirement. Otherwise, it cannot be authorized as an IB school. I hope you're getting my point here. So
Right,
it's not matching up or down here in any way. If you're authorized, you're matching.
right, right. So the other question is ongoing staff development is important. Is there a difference between the way CBSE and IB schools handle this?
See, my recent movement to CBSE, I don't think so I'll be able to comment much on it. But yeah, staff development in IB, I've seen, because various responsibilities, everything gets catered to. There are workshops of different categories that gets done from time to time. Due to COVID, online workshops became much more easier, and there was so much of staff who went for these online courses as well, which was a very good, I must say, COVID gave at least this much of wonderful areas, avenues to explore for the staff. However, I'm sure with 2, 3, 4 years of my experience in CBSE, I'll be able to better answer this question then.
Okay. Are IB school fee more higher than CBSE schools? If yes, what reasons that costs are higher?
Okay, I'm sure a parent is asking this question.
I'm sure about it.
Okay, so yes, definitely the IB school fees is definitely, and it has to be higher. As I told you, authorization is very important for a school. If the school, the authorization gets cancelled for the school, and which happens every 5 years. It's not that once you're authorized forever. No, that doesn't happen in IB. So the systems have to be, they should go. And it's not that, oh, 5th year the authorization is happening, so we will start correcting things if there are drawbacks in the 5th year. All arrangements have to be done every time. Maybe you need it, you don't need it, right? Just to give you an example, all schools are inclusive, I know that, but the level of inclusivity also is so high sometimes that I remember one of the instances. It was 3 years back or 4 years back, I don't remember. No, 5, 6 years back, in fact, that one of the buildings in our school at that time, I'm not naming my school, it was an IB school, it didn't have that ramp, a little ramp. I'm just talking a little thing. I know it's a very little thing, maybe not directly connected to fees, but maybe that parent will understand my point here. So there was this little ramp which was not there in just one building. A recommendation came from IB because there are visitors who visit, they look at each nook and cranny, as I said. So a recommendation came for that ramp not there, that if let's say there is an injured student and on a wheelchair, how will that student go a little? And that was just a notch high as a platform. It's not was a super platform that the student will have to jump. I mean, with a little lift of maybe, but no, they do not listen to any of these things. So I'm just talking of a very simple thing, but that's not simple in the eyes of the evaluators when they come for these visits. So everything has to be maintained in such a way. And that is one prime reason of so much of a fees. Another prime reason, there are many reasons, in fact. As I said, it is an activity-based approach. There is nothing, sometimes there are no books. There are suggestions of you can refer. There are reference kind of books, but that again depends on the child. On the parent, whether to want to buy it or not. And those are also very, very expensive. So again, the activity-based approach, and the school caters to that. The school is not asking for the students to bring it, right? So each and everything is catered to by the school. Honestly, the opting of when it happens at a higher level for the child for a specific subject where the student has opted for example, robotics. I'm just again saying that is not something that the school will buy for the child, a robotic kit or something, but daily based activities, because that's actually embedded in the system for each and every subject, so that the school caters to. The children do not bring it from home. They can if they want to, if they don't like it, because that's something common we are providing to the children in school, but that is how it is. And that is a very good reason. They have to maintain that kind of structure for and the system for the students, which is uniform, which is meeting the target expectations globally for the child. So hence the fees is so high.
All right. So infrastructure and everything plays an important role in the IB.
Infrastructure also, because obviously these little things I told you about, little things. If the school is 3 floors, why is there not a lift? Many things are there, many things, and functioning of all these things, whether or not you use it on a daily purpose or not, daily thing or not, hardly matters.
Right. So discussing about the syllabus, is it not having a set books for syllabus a good or bad thing from a teacher's point of view?
It's a very good thing of not having specific books. It's a very good thing. As a parent, I'm telling you, forget as a teacher. It's a very good thing. My children, starting from pre-nursery, they were in an IB school. No books at all. So they are in a better shape. They are so informed. They decide for themselves. I did not decide. If you ask me, maybe I would not have done that move after a decade. Why will I do that? I'm so very well adjusted in the system. I never heard, there were colleagues who were telling me, we've heard of no one moving from let's say an IB to a CBSE, you're the only one we've heard in our life, right? But my child opted for that. So my child at this stage, if she is or he is wanting to, and that's what they're deciding for themselves, what can be better for me? So there's nothing left for me to do. So I feel not having books is a wonderful approach. It's the best approach. As a parent, I feel that. Forget as a teacher. Obviously, as a teacher, I would obviously say that.
Thanks, Ms. Kavita. That was the end of question answer round for today's session. And it was a very good session and very informative session. And we would like to have you again for the continuation, as you mentioned in the starting. And School Journal of Education and schoolreformer.com. Thanks for the talk and for patiently answering all the questions, ma'am. And we also thank the audience for participating in the event. And we will close the meeting now.
Thank you so much, Ms. Praveena, for inviting me for this session. It's really an honor, and I'll be really looking forward for more such sessions. Thank you so much to all. Yes.
Thank you.